Get ready to explore an inspiring collection of gardening strategies grounded in old school wisdom and updated with modern know-how. These tried and true survival hacks, passed down from Grandpa himself, will show you how to make the most of your space, materials, and resources. We're talking about tips that go beyond generic green thumb advice. These are real-world methods designed to work in today's unpredictable environment. Whether you're facing limited water, tough soil, or the need to produce more food in a smaller area, Grandpa's advice covers it all. Number 1. Hugelkultur mounds. Grandpa's trick for turning yard waste into a rich planting bed starts by stacking logs, branches, and wood scraps in a raised mound, then covering it with compost and soil. As the wood rots beneath the surface, it creates a sponge-like layer that absorbs and retains water, reducing the need for frequent irrigation. Recent discussions online highlight that hugelkultur can significantly boost soil fertility because decaying wood releases nutrients over several years. Grandpa insists it's also a great way to repurpose fallen limbs and old firewood. People trying this method say it's perfect for sloped or uneven land because a mound can be built to match the terrain. Grandpa likes to mulch the top to maintain moisture, and after the first season, the soil becomes so loose and rich that digging is almost effortless. This is one hack that might sound strange at first, but it transforms waste wood into a treasure trove of long-lasting fertility. Number 2. Homemade bug traps. Grandpa knows that pests can decimate a garden if you're not careful, so he sets up simple traps using plastic bottles, fruit scraps, and a bit of vinegar or sugar water. Cutting the top third of a plastic bottle and inverting it into the bottom portion creates a funnel where flies, wasps, or fruit pests crawl in and can't escape. Plenty of DIY websites confirm that this trap is one of the easiest ways to handle minor pest outbreaks without relying on harsh chemicals. Grandpa places several traps around areas prone to infestations, like near fruit trees or compost piles. In some cases, folks add a drop of dish soap to break surface tension, ensuring insects sink. This method is cheap, reuses plastic bottles, and is especially handy in survival scenarios when you might not have access to store-bought traps. It's all about practical life hacks that make life a bit easier. Number 3. Winter sowing in jugs. Grandpa uses gallon milk jugs as mini greenhouses for seeds that need a head start. He cuts the jugs about 3/4 of the way up, fills the bottom with potting mix, scatters seeds, then tapes the top back on. Poking a few air holes keeps things from getting too damp. Gardening enthusiasts have discovered that leaving these jugs outside in the cold helps seeds acclimate naturally, leading to stronger sprouts in spring. Grandpa says it's an excellent way to avoid cluttering your windowsills or indoor spaces with trays. Multiple forums confirm that winter sowing often results in hardier plants because they adapt to temperature swings from the beginning. This hack suits an adult audience who might not have time to hover over seedlings indoors. Once the weather warms up, the jugs act like tiny greenhouses, and you can transplant robust seedlings into the garden. It's a simple, cost-effective trick that ensures you're not stuck juggling seed trays all winter long. Number 4. Three Sisters companion planting. Grandpa's old-school approach borrows from Native American tradition by growing corn, beans, and squash together. The corn stalks provide support for climbing beans, the beans fix nitrogen into the soil to benefit all 3 crops, and the squash's broad leaves create shade to discourage weeds and retain moisture. Various articles analyze how this trio boosts yields and reduces the need for artificial fertilizers. Grandpa arranges the plants in small mounds, spacing them so each has room to thrive. The synergy among the 3 sisters also helps ward off certain pests. Recent data suggests mixing marigolds around the plot may enhance pest resistance. Survival gardening forums emphasize that relying on multiple crops in the same area increases resilience if one fails. Grandpa finds it satisfying because it mimics natural ecosystems, saving space and labor while ensuring a diverse harvest. It's a synergy hack you'll wish you knew sooner. Number 5. Gutter gardening. Using old rain gutters, Grandpa creates narrow planters ideal for lettuce, radishes, or other shallow-rooted plants. He mounts the gutters along a fence or wall, drilling small drainage holes to prevent waterlogging. Many city gardeners swear by gutter gardening as a game-changing life hack because it maximizes vertical space, especially if you're short on square footage. Grandpa lines the bottom with a bit of mesh or landscape fabric to keep soil from washing out. Some folks repurpose old PVC pipes in a similar way. Online communities point out that this system can be connected to a drip line or a homemade watering system for low-maintenance care. Grandpa likes how neat it looks and says that in a survival situation, every spare inch of space counts. By planting herbs or quick-growing greens, you can enjoy a small but steady supply of fresh produce without bending down or wrestling with big containers. Number 6. Bokashi composting. Grandpa discovered Bokashi through a neighbor who swore by this Japanese method of fermenting kitchen scraps. He layers food waste with special bran, inoculated with beneficial microbes in an airtight bucket. After a couple of weeks, the scraps turn into a pre-compost that can be buried in the soil to finish breaking down. Deep analysis of fermentation processes reveals that Bokashi can handle meat, dairy, and cooked foods better than traditional composting. Grandpa loves that it cuts down on odors and repels pests, so it's more apartment-friendly than an open compost pile. Many new articles suggest Bokashi compost also improves soil microbial life quickly. Another advantage is speed. You can produce nutrient-rich material in a fraction of the time needed for traditional compost. This hack is perfect for people who don't want the hassle of turning a compost heap, and it's a surefire way to convert more kitchen scraps into valuable soil amendments. Number 7. Double dig prep for intensive planting. Grandpa only resorts to double digging in specific compacted areas because it's more labor-intensive, but the payoff can be huge. He removes the top layer of soil, loosens the subsoil beneath, then replaces the top layer, adding compost along the way. Old gardening manuals and modern online forums agree that double digging can dramatically improve drainage and root penetration, essential for strong plant growth. It's basically aerating your garden from the ground up. Grandpa uses this method for high-value crops like carrots or potatoes that need deep, loose soil. Even though it's a bit of a workout, many people say the results are worth it. Healthier plants and a better yield in a smaller space. This approach might not fit the no-dig philosophy, but if you're dealing with rock-hard soil, Grandpa finds it beneficial to do it once, then switch to gentler methods. The deep analysis is that if you lay on thick mulch afterward, you won't have to repeat the process too often. Number 8. Solarizing your beds. Grandpa suggests solarizing if you've got a weedy or diseased patch of soil. He wets the ground, then covers it tightly with clear plastic sheeting during hot weather. Over several weeks, the sun's heat bakes the soil, killing weeds, pests, and fungi. Modern gardening research confirms solarization can be highly effective, though it also kills some beneficial organisms. So, Grandpa follows up by adding compost to reintroduce good microbes. Many survival gardeners say this is a chemical-free way to reclaim land that's overrun by invasive weeds. The time-saving hack is not having to pull stubborn weeds by hand. Grandpa advises anchoring the plastic's edges with rocks or boards, so no heat escapes. While it takes a few weeks, the result is a cleaner slate for future plantings. For large areas, some folks break it down into sections, solarizing one patch at a time. Grandpa notes that a bit of planning goes a long way with this powerful technique. Number 9. Epsom salt solutions. Grandpa discovered that a diluted mixture of Epsom salt and water can help plants that crave magnesium, such as peppers, roses, and tomatoes. Horticultural experts debate its overall effectiveness, but many home gardeners swear by it as a quick fix for yellowing leaves and slow growth. Grandpa dissolves 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt in a gallon of water and sprays it on leaves, especially if he notices signs of magnesium deficiency. Some folks also sprinkle small amounts directly on the soil, but Grandpa usually opts for foliar feeding for faster absorption. Since magnesium can be leached from soil with frequent watering, an occasional Epsom salt boost might help. Recent articles urge caution. Too much can imbalance soil nutrients, so moderation is key. Grandpa's rule of thumb is to use it only if you see symptoms or once every few weeks during peak growth. This easy hack ensures you're not spending money on pricey specialized fertilizers. Number 10. Homemade seed tape. Grandpa mixes a simple flour and water paste to stick seeds onto strips of biodegradable paper like toilet paper. He dots the paste at intervals matching each seed's recommended spacing, drops a seed on each dot, and lets it dry. When planting, he just lays the strips in the furrow, covers with soil, and waters. This is a time-saving hack that ensures perfectly spaced rows without fussing outdoors with tiny seeds. Online craft and gardening sites love this approach because it's cheap and easy to store until planting time. Grandpa says it's especially helpful for carrots and lettuce, which are notoriously small seeds. This hack guarantees a more uniform garden layout and reduces thinning later. It's also a fun project to do with family or friends on a rainy afternoon, and you can label each strip if you're growing multiple varieties. That way, you avoid mix-ups in your survival garden. Number 11, using peat moss wisely. Grandpa reminds everyone that peat moss can dramatically improve water retention in sandy soils, but it can be tricky to rehydrate once it dries out completely. He soaks it overnight before mixing it into his garden beds. Some sustainability discussions argue that peat moss is not the most eco-friendly resource because it forms slowly in peat bogs. Grandpa's alternative is coconut coir, which offers a similar effect with fewer environmental concerns. Whichever material you choose, the hack is to incorporate it into the top few inches of soil to create a sponge-like texture that helps in dry climates. This approach, confirmed by soil experts online, can lower your watering frequency and give plants a healthier root environment. Grandpa suggests combining it with compost for a balanced nutrient profile. For survival gardening, maximizing moisture retention can be a lifesaver if drought conditions strike unexpectedly. Number 12, building a living fence. Grandpa grows dense shrubs or small trees in a line, weaving or training their branches to form a natural barrier. Willow is a popular choice because it roots easily from cuttings, but any fast-growing woody plant can work. People on homesteading forums talk about living fences as an alternative to expensive lumber or wire. Grandpa says it serves multiple purposes: privacy, windbreak, and habitat for birds that eat garden pests. Over time, the woven branches form a sturdy hedge that's difficult for larger animals to penetrate. Recent research shows that living fences also help with soil retention, important if you have sloping land. With a little patience, you end up with a green wall that's surprisingly effective. This hack might take a couple of seasons to fill in, but Grandpa loves the idea of a self-repairing fence that also beautifies the yard. If you weave herbs like rosemary or sage into it, you get culinary perks as well. Number 13, spent mushroom compost. After commercial mushroom farms finish a cycle, they often sell or give away spent compost that still has plenty of organic matter. Grandpa uses it to revitalize tired garden soil. He's read articles suggesting that spent mushroom compost is high in nutrients and helps improve soil structure, though it can be slightly alkaline. If you're growing acid-loving plants, you may need to balance it with something more acidic. Many gardeners report that tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers respond well to mushroom compost. Grandpa spreads a layer over the top of his beds and works it in lightly. This hack gets attention on gardening boards because it's a bargain compared to regular bagged compost, and often you can load up directly from local mushroom producers. It's a perfect example of Grandpa's thrifty ways, turning someone else's byproduct into a goldmine for your garden. He advises mixing it thoroughly with existing soil to avoid any risk of fungus gnats or excess salts. Number 14, leaf mold for soil health. Grandpa also collects fallen leaves each autumn, piles them up, and lets them break down into a crumbly material known as leaf mold. Multiple studies show that leaf mold increases soil's water-holding capacity and promotes beneficial fungal networks. To speed up decomposition, he shreds the leaves with a lawnmower or leaf shredder, then keeps them slightly moist. Forums worldwide confirm that leaf mold is less about high nutrient content and more about improving soil texture and microbial life. Grandpa's tip is to store leaves in a simple wire cage or breathable bags so air can circulate. In about 6 to 12 months, you'll have a dark, earthy-smelling amendment that your plants will love. This hack is free, reduces yard waste, and gives a major boost to soil health. If you run out of compost or manure, leaf mold is an excellent fallback, especially if you're patient enough to let nature do its work. Number 15, overwintering peppers. Grandpa discovered that many pepper plants, especially the more exotic varieties, can live multiple years if you bring them indoors during cold months. He prunes them back, pots them up, and places them near a sunny window. Articles dedicated to perennial peppers mention that consistent indoor temperatures keep them alive, though they might drop leaves at first. Once spring returns, Grandpa reintroduces them to the garden, and they quickly take off, often producing earlier than new seedlings. This hack saves money on buying new pepper starts each season. Survival gardeners love it because established peppers are more resilient and yield more fruit. Grandpa says the key is watering sparingly indoors to avoid root rot and giving them a slow-release fertilizer. By the second or third year, some peppers develop woody stems, essentially turning into small shrubs. This approach can be extended to certain herbs too, making it a time-saving hack you'll appreciate after the first harvest. Number 16, comfrey tea fertilizer. Grandpa grows comfrey because it's high in nutrients and has deep taproots that pull up minerals from the subsoil. He chops the leaves and steeps them in water for a couple of weeks, creating a dark, strong-smelling tea that he dilutes before using on plants. Online organic gardening communities recommend comfrey tea as a potent booster for fruiting plants, especially tomatoes and peppers. Grandpa also uses comfrey leaves as a mulch layer around plants, letting them break down in place. Many people caution about the odor during fermentation, so it's best to store the bucket away from living spaces. The final product is a free, high-potassium feed that rivals store-bought options. Grandpa's personal take is that comfrey can be invasive if left to flower and spread seeds, so he harvests leaves often to keep it in check. It's a prime example of using what nature offers without constantly reaching for commercial fertilizers. Number 17, greywater irrigation. Grandpa taps into lightly used household water from sinks or washing machines for his ornamental plants. While opinions vary, many off-grid living articles highlight that, if done carefully, greywater systems can save significant amounts of water each month. Grandpa ensures biodegradable, garden-friendly soaps and detergents are used, and he directs the water to fruit trees or shrubs, not directly on veggies. Deep analysis shows that filtered greywater can replenish soils, especially in arid zones, but local regulations might restrict usage. Grandpa sees it as another angle on resourcefulness. If you're in a survival scenario, reusing every drop of water can keep crops alive. He filters solids out with a simple mesh or homemade filter and never stores greywater for more than a day to avoid bacteria buildup. This hack reflects Grandpa's mantra: use common sense and adapt based on your local rules and environment. Number 18, building a cold frame. Grandpa constructs a simple cold frame using old windows and scrap lumber to extend the growing season. It's like a mini greenhouse that traps heat, letting you start seeds earlier in spring or keep crops going later in fall. Modern advice suggests placing your cold frame facing south to capture maximum sunlight. Grandpa props open the window during warm days to prevent overheating. This hack is super popular among survival gardeners who want to stretch out their harvest. A deeper read into cold climate forums reveals that insulating the sides with straw bales can make a cold frame even more effective. Grandpa lines the base with stones to absorb and release heat slowly at night. It's a do-it-yourself structure that can be built to whatever size you need, and you'll be amazed at how much extra produce you can squeeze out of the season. The advantage is immediate: fresh greens while everyone else's garden is frostbitten. Number 19, stinging nettle benefits. Grandpa grows a small patch of stinging nettle, wearing gloves to harvest it. Despite its prickly nature, nettle is packed with nutrients and can be brewed into a fertilizer tea similar to comfrey. It's also edible once cooked, making a nutrient-dense survival food. Recent articles analyzed nettle's benefits for soil health and as a habitat for beneficial insects. Grandpa emphasizes caution during harvest. The tiny hairs can cause irritation, so always wear protective clothing. Once wilted, nettles lose their sting, so they can be composted or used as a mulch layer. Many people are turning to nettle as a renewable resource that boosts biodiversity in the garden. Grandpa sees it as yet another tool in the arsenal of free, organic amendments. By letting a small patch grow in a controlled manner, you get fertilizer, mulch, and a nutritious leafy green all in one. It's a classic old-time hack that's making a modern comeback in sustainable gardening circles. Number 20, apple cider vinegar wash. Grandpa finishes off with a tip for cleaning your produce and tools. He mixes water with a splash of apple cider vinegar to rinse freshly harvested fruits and veggies, removing any pests or residues. Online discussions mention that an acidic rinse can also help sterilize pruners or garden shears between cuts, minimizing the spread of disease. Grandpa likes the mild vinegar smell and the fact that it's less harsh than bleach. This hack, taken right from the kitchen, aligns with Grandpa's home hacks approach. Use what you have on hand to solve everyday problems. Some folks say a vinegar wash even helps prolong storage life for certain fruits by reducing surface bacteria. Grandpa recommends a ratio of about 1 part vinegar to 4 parts water, adjusting as needed. This final piece of advice underscores the beauty of survival gardening. Simple, accessible solutions that keep you safe, efficient, and ready for whatever comes your way.